So there we are. On the 7th of September, F1's worst kept secret finally became official. George Russell will be driving at Mercedes in 2022 alongside Lewis Hamilton. And the magnitude of this move cannot be underestimated, as it's the final piece of the puzzle to usher in a new generation of drivers competing at the highest level of Formula 1. In 2016, Max Verstappen moved to Red Bull. In 2019, Charles Leclerc moved to Ferrari, as well as Lando Norris securing that seat at McLaren. And now finally in 2022, the last major team, Mercedes, has chosen youth in George Russell. And so next year will be massively significant, as you've got 4 young guns at 4 of the top teams fighting over that world title. It's the beginning of a new age in Formula 1, and there's a lot to be excited about. But unlike Verstappen, Leclerc or Norris, when Russell arrives at Mercedes, he won't be the team leader straight off the bat. He's got a bit of a hurdle in the form of Lewis Hamilton to overcome, and that is one tall hurdle. As we all know, Lewis Hamilton is a 7-time world champion, and arguably the greatest of all time. But most importantly, he's been at the team for 8 or so years. So for Russell to come in and get the team to side with him, it's going to take a serious amount of impressing and quite a bit of time. So that's one hurdle to overcome. But if he wants to win the World Championship, he needs a reliable and competitive car under him. So with all this in mind, let's analyse. Will George Russell be a world champion at Mercedes? Well, in order to analyse the kind of driver George Russell is, we really need to have a look at what he's done in his racing career so far. Well, briefly looking at his career before Formula 1, it's nothing short of outstanding. Between 2008 and 2018, Russell competed in 19 different championships, and out of those 19, he won 13 of them, came second in 4, and then third in the other 2. To put it simply, George Russell has one of the best junior careers I have ever seen. So unsurprisingly, once George wrapped up the 2018 Formula 2 Championship in his rookie season, he found himself with a Williams Formula 1 seat for 2019. Quick side note, for any of you that are fans of the late great Jim Clark, I produced a short documentary with fellow F1 YouTuber Ollie Patas, documenting his incredible life. So tap the video card above and go give it a watch. And don't forget to give Ollie a subscribe as well. Right, now back to George. And well, he was partnered alongside F1 legend Robert Kubica, and not to discredit Kubica, but Russell wiped the floor with him. Although Robert claimed Williams' only point that season, Russell dominated Kubica, beating him 21-0 in qualifying and 17-3 in the actual races. Now of course, Robert isn't the driver that he used to be due to his injuries, but that is a very impressive record to have, especially in your rookie season. Well, at the end of the season, Williams parted ways with Kubica and brought in Canadian Nicholas Latifi, but it was the exact same story. 16-0 in qualifying and 10-6 in the races, which would have been more if it wasn't for his 4 DNFs. But in 2020, we got our first glimpse of Russell at the front when he stepped in for Lewis Hamilton at the Sakir Grand Prix. And as we know, he qualified second behind Bottas but took the lead into turn 1 and would have gone on to win the race if it wasn't for Mercedes' terrible pit stop. But even though he didn't win the race, it was a massive wake-up call for Mercedes to take this guy seriously. And now this brings us to 2021, and as of the Italian Grand Prix, Russell is beating Latifi 13-1 in qualifying and 9-4 in the races. But it's Russell's individual performances that have been so incredible, such as his astonishing qualifying lap in Belgium to start P2 and then finish P2, as well as the fact he's only missed out on Q2 once this whole season. So based on his Formula 1 career so far, did George Russell deserve the call up to Mercedes? Well, in short, absolutely. Based on merit, he really should have been there already, but for Mercedes, it really made more sense to keep Bottas. You see, the past few years, the Mercedes car has been so good that they've never needed to worry about having 2 equally talented drivers. Rather, it made more sense to have a second driver to support the main driver in the championship. And this is what Valtteri Bottas did incredibly well. No wonder Lewis called him his best teammate ever. But now with Red Bull being much stronger, as well as the unpredictability of the new regulations, it's very important to have 2 drivers performing at equally high levels to score as many points as possible against their rivals. So in this scenario, Bottas has to go. For Mercedes, it's worth the gamble to take on a young talent like George rather than keep Valtteri, because we've seen it work out in front of our very eyes with Ferrari, Red Bull and McLaren. And well, looking at whether George has what it takes to fight alongside the best drivers in the best teams, I'm just going to say this. Every great driver throughout history has had one or two moments in their first few seasons that blew people away. You think Senna almost winning the 1984 Monaco Grand Prix for Toleman, Schumacher's debut at Spa in 1991, Max Verstappen winning his first race for Red Bull in 2016, and when looking at Russell, he's had those moments such as the 2020 Sakir Grand Prix, where his debut win for Mercedes was taken away from him, or in Belgium this year when he put a Williams on the front row. In short, moments like these are the hallmarks for a great driver. The only thing I would say Russell needs to work on to be a truly bulletproof driver is his consistency. While he has blown us away with some incredible performances this season, he has found himself quite a lot of the time behind his teammate in the races or getting on the wrong side of certain incidents. But for a 23-year-old, Russell is an extremely mature guy, and I'm sure with a decent amount of time at the team, he can build a rhythm and find that consistency which is crucial not just for beating Lewis Hamilton, but also for winning the championship. But Russell can do everything in his power to get to that point, but if he doesn't have the right equipment under him, he will never win a championship. So let's have a look at what Mercedes can bring to the table looking into the future. Well, for next year there will be a change in regulations which always throws in some unpredictability, but with the budget cap coming into full force as well, this is by far the greatest hurdle Mercedes have faced since their domination of the sport began in 2014. However, despite this, I still believe, somewhat unpopularly, that Mercedes will be the strongest team next year, with their closest rivals being Ferrari. But why do I think this? Well, to firstly address Red Bull, I feel the amount of resources they are putting into this year to win the title will hinder them quite a bit for next year. And when it comes to regulations, although there is a lot of change, the teams with the best employees and greatest resources will have the best chance at winning. The 2017 regulation change is a perfect example of this. So, in my opinion, I think Mercedes will have a strong car that can challenge for the title next year. But as I mentioned, George still has a 7-time world champion to overcome if he wants to win that illustrious title. And boy is it going to be an interesting rivalry between the two Brits. The way I see it is it could replicate one of 3 previous teammate rivalries. Either 2014 Red Bull, where the young and exciting Daniel Ricciardo wiped the floor with reigning 4-time world champion Sebastian Vettel, 2007 McLaren, where a rookie Lewis Hamilton went toe-to-toe with the reigning 2-time champion Alonso, ending up on equal points, or 2017 Mercedes, where a solid Valtteri Bottas came in and slotted comfortably into that second driver role behind Lewis Hamilton. As to which one I think Russell could emulate, it's very hard to say. But what I will say is George is a very mature and professional driver, and so he knows exactly where he needs to be within himself to impress the guys at Mercedes that call the shots. So what is my personal verdict? Do I think George Russell can be a world champion with Mercedes? Yes, I do, but not with Hamilton as his teammate. George is smart enough to know that if he goes in all guns blazing, causing friction in the team, that will not impress Mercedes. Rather, what I think Russell will do is walk that fine line between impressing the team enough to believe in him, but also not cause any conflict. It makes much more sense for Russell to play the long game by learning off of Hamilton for a year or two, developing his abilities so that once Lewis retires, George will be the main man at Mercedes. And once that happens, he'll have the whole team behind him, which makes going for a championship so much easier, as we are seeing now with Verstappen and Red Bull. Anyway, that's just my opinion, but I'd love to know where you guys stand on the topic. So comment below how you think Russell will fare at Mercedes, and as always, make sure to like, subscribe, and smash that notification bell to be reminded of any new videos.